something that's really interesting. We caught something on the Trish Regan show yesterday. We talked about how they were editing things kind of peculiar way to kind of basically take the meat out of what Trump was saying in that interview that he did on 60 Minutes on Sunday night. And now even MSNBC is admitting it as well. Let's go back to that interview because I want to show you something. We got the middle of the shutdown happening, right? And this shutdown could be fixed if the Democrats would get it out of their head that they didn't have to have $1.5 trillion for health care that would go to illegals. But they're insisting on this. This is something that was put in as an extra provision during COVID. So during 2020, Nancy and Chuck, they were like, woohoo, we got money to spend, and we're going to print, and we're going to spend. You had Powell at the Fed along for the ride, just printing money like, there was no tomorrow. It was QE1, QE2, QE3. I mean, one big cruise ship, right, of money floating towards you. Plus, you had Nancy and Chuck. Oh, and least I forget, Joe Biden was like, I'm going to send a stimulus check too. So he got the third stimulus check sent out to every American. I mean, this was a lot of money. You wonder why you were seeing double-digit inflation in consumer, well, it wasn't consumer prices, producer prices. I think we were up to 9.6% inflation in consumer prices. It was out of control. All right? That was a problem. And now, here we're looking at a situation where Donald Trump is coming in. He's fixing it all. He wants to get rid of the $1.5 trillion because it was set to expire anyway, and they're throwing a hissy fit. And so he's asked by the reporter at CBS about this, and she airs one version of his answer, but the version of his answer that was actually the one I personally would have aired because it reflected his concern about where this money was going was just completely left out. Take a peek.
Give us an extension. We'll work it out. They've lost their way. They become crazed lunatics. And all they have to do, Nora, is
This is what they aired.
Let's vote.
So, Hakeem,
Senate Democrats say they will vote to reopen the government if Republicans agree to extend subsidies for over 20 million Americans who use Obamacare for their health insurance.
You hear that? Okay, so that's her version. Let's go back to what he actually said. And we know this because guess what? The White House put out all 74 minutes. They only ran 27, but the White House put out all 74 minutes. So we've seen the entire interview. Take a peek.
Saying, give us an extension. We'll work it out. They've lost their way. They become crazed lunatics. And all they have to do, Nora, is say, let's vote. And you can open, the economy could open up during our interview.
Is there something you
Maybe
can
it
do?
did.
Is there something you
All I
can do to bring this
is
to
give
an
the
end?
facts. Here's what I can't do. I can't give them $1.5 trillion so that they can give welfare to people that came into our country illegally, so that prisoners and that people from mental institutions and people that are drug dealers get vast amounts of money for health care. That I can't.
That's kind of an important part of the argument, right? I mean, that's the whole reason why he's not willing to say, okay, fine, on the $1.5 trillion. And yet she completely obliterates it. CBS completely obliterated it. And you wonder why nobody trusts these legacy media institutions anymore. Well, over on MSNBC, they have a different view of it. They actually think that, yes, in fact, somebody could sue over this, but they see it rather differently. Again, we know all this because the administration put out the entire 74 minutes. So thank you for that, guys. Like transparency. Thank you very much. We need that transparency. I wouldn't know about this if it wasn't for that transparency. So let's go to what they're saying. They're singing a different tune, of course, over on MSNBC this morning, suggesting that somebody ought to sue because of, well, other reasons. They find other things that should have been in there that weren't.
Here you have Donald Trump suing CBS because they edited some of their interview with Kamala Harris, which CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox News, every network, forever. Do the same thing.
For time.
$16 million. He gets $16 million. And then goes back to CBS's 60 Minutes. Mm-hmm. And not only do they edit significant parts of the interview, They edit parts of the interview he tells them to edit. Is that right? Like you say, oh, you don't have to put that in. Don't put that. You probably don't want to put that in. Don't put that in. And of course, as we said before, if somebody wants me to put something in, all they have to do is tell me not to put it in, and it's in.
Right. Because it means it's significant. Well, you may have said something you don't want the world to know. So that makes it inherently newsworthy. But a year ago, just over a year ago, that 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris airs, and conspiracy theorist finds in the transcript some nefarious plot by CBS to get Kamala Harris elected, a nefarious plot against Donald Trump because they edited for time because the show's only an hour. So now we have yesterday, fast forward a year, that interview comes out, CBS puts out the transcript, and you can see all the things, some of them very significant, left out for time, which raises the question, should there now be a lawsuit against CBS for selectively editing an interview with the President of the United States, as was...
Okay, let me just say, they're trying really hard. They're really, really trying hard. Let me just make it really clear to all of them, you know what? You can edit for time, sure, all right? But you don't get to hide behind, oh, we're editing for time. When you take total word salad and you actually make it sound meaningful, like the woman has half a brain, which... Clearly, I mean, look, you saw the same thing I did, all right? We had to see Kamala go around and around and around and around and around the mulberry bush before she ever got to a point. And there was no real point. But at least when they edited it, and I said this editor deserves an Emmy Award-winning prize just for being able to make sense of Kamala Harris, she had to answer the question on Israel. And they performed surgery to make it work. Look, it does happen. People edit for time, but not for content, okay? I can tell you that. I've been a journalist for 20 some odd, like many, many years. I started in the year 2000 for real, but I was an intern at NBC. I've had a lot of experience prior to that. I mean, I was the 7th grade, maybe the 5th grade, Hampton Academy correspondent when I was a kid at the Hampton, newspaper. What was it called? The Hampton Union. Yeah, there was the Hampton Union. I got paid 50 cents on my first story. My dad framed the check. So anyway, the point is I've been around this for a while and I understand the ethics involved. You do not change the entire story just because you want, I think you want to help Kamala Harris in that case. Maybe you want to help your viewer. Maybe you're like, oh, this is what she really meant. But that bias is being reflected because I guarantee you they wouldn't have done that for Trump. I can remember when Trump first came on the scene and just trying to edit some of the things he said because he didn't have sort of like a natural soundbite. You know, he jokes about how he does the, what does he call it? Where he does sort of the pivot, right? He's got like a name for it. He's used up on the campaign platform. One of you guys is going to remember. He does this like loop-de-loop. And it's kind of funny because he'll be telling you a story and then he'll go off. Heck, I probably do that too a little bit on this show. Forgive me. He'll go off and he'll tell you something really, really interesting. And then he'll come back and he'll tell you exactly what he thought. And so it makes it sometimes challenging, right, as an editor or producer to cut those. But nobody's cutting them in a way that actually fundamentally, unless you're the BBC, you saw that one, unless you're the BBC, fundamentally changes what he's saying, or unless you're CBS News, because I think they did fundamentally change what he was saying vis-a-vis why that $1.5 trillion, right, needed to go. So it's reflecting their bias. Maybe my bias is to not change what he's saying because, I want to be as truthful as I can. I think about, they called them cheap fakes when we would show versions of Joe Biden struggling to sit down. Remember he was in France. And he was trying to figure out what was to sit down and he kept trying to sit and people thought there was no chair there. There was, and I showed you the full complete clip. I didn't even need to cut it short because the full complete clip was that compelling. He kept trying to sit and then eventually he did sit. Or the time that he wandered off, right? Because he saw somebody with a big giant balloon. He just wandered off away from the whole team at G7 and Giorgia Meloni, great woman that she is, Prime Minister of Italy. Mwah, right? She's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. She goes off and gets him. Everybody else is like, where's my shot? Where's my camera? Where's the lights? And Maloney went off and she brought him back. And I showed you all of it. I didn't cut it short because it was worth seeing all of it. I like to think that I'm a lot more fair than some of these other journalists, but this is what the business is, right? When you get 74 minutes with Trump and you only air 27, first of all, aren't you called 60 minutes? I get it. You got commercials, all right? So let's do the math. They basically have 22 minutes per half hour. I know this again because I worked at CBS Evening News. They had 8 minutes worth of commercials. Okay, so you add 22 and 22, and we're going to get 44. So you could have at least interviewed him for 74 and shown 44. Maybe you cut out 30 minutes. It would have been a little bit better. But no, they had other things they had to get to, right? Like everybody's watching them. Not. Anyway, CBS, we wish you lots of luck. You got a lot of stuff going on, and I know everybody's working hard to cling to their job. But him saying, oh, don't have to put that in, that's it. How do I say this? It's not that the reporter necessarily, like MSNBC wants you to believe, is immediately not going to put that in. He just probably realized that he went off on his tangent. He likes to go on the tangents. He likes to tell stories. And it's kind of fun. Like, I enjoy those stories. That's what makes him great at these rallies, right? You never know what he's going to say. He kind of just talks. And we've never seen that in a politician before. I mean, they're so tightly wound and they're so tightly scripted and they just stick to their talking points. And then all of a sudden, this man comes out of nowhere in 2016, right down the escalator. His wife wore a strapless. I'll never forget it. I mean, we were so used to Michelle Obama, and she was living on the edge with the dresses that would show off the shoulder, the fattest part of the arm right here, cut her right there. Word to the wise, you wear it this way, triangular, or you wear it like Melania did. You don't wear it that way, okay? It's just like the worst possible. Bad lines. But, it made her look really strong, really strong. And I thought to myself, wow, like this is refreshing. And by the way, Melania's finally getting rid of those silly dresses that Michelle wore. I am digressing nonetheless. You get my point. So CBS is in a lot of trouble and they're all kind of scared because they're all fearful they're going to lose their multi-million-dollar jobs. And they probably will. Because that business doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. I mean, you can do a whole lot more with a whole lot less. Case in point, I think about it. Back in the day, like when I worked for them, we'd have to get a live truck. If I was going to do something, say, on the road, anywhere outside the studio, and you would pay tens of thousands of dollars for a live truck for your 10 little seconds that you'd get, to be on camera. And you think about what we're able to do now, it's just miraculous. It makes me a big believer, by the way, in the tech economy overall. I would advise you guys, I think I have it in the show notes, but if you missed it, go check out my company, 76research.com. I'm putting it here in the screen, 76research.com. I want you to use code $, because then you get my newsletter for $1 a month for the first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95. But I am a big believer in the tech economy, and I don't care, you can get distracted with the day-to-day stuff. I think overall we're in store for some really good things.